Well, hello there. Welcome to On the Beat, the podcast that uncovers full frontal male nudity in cinema. My name is Laura, and I am joined by my co-host, Ryan.
Hello.
Oh, are you okay?
It's just really sad.
Well, I can't really cheer you up because this is
No, nothing's going to cheer me up.
No, it's not. Not talking about this film, which is the third in our small series that we're doing, McQUEENERs. This is the third and final, McQUEENER.
It's so in light of everything, we shouldn't even be
Let me just get through
smiling.
it, because we did this to ourselves because we wanted to talk about Steve McQueen movies, and Steve McQueen directed 12 Years a Slave.
He's far too good at what he does. That's the problem.
In 2013. Yeah, he is. He's great. That's why we wanted to talk about him.
He's far too good. He makes far too engaging films that are incredibly realistic and incredibly brutal and honest and historically important.
This man cannot and will not shy away from showing the brutal truth.
Yes.
And doesn't want us to look away either.
Yeah, sometimes it's really brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we kind of reached the pinnacle here, the pinnacle of brutality in 12 Years a Slave. So this film stars Chiwetel Ejiofor. There's a lot of people in this movie.
This is like an all-star. Yeah, this is like
crazy.
An all-star cast.
Michael Fassbender,
Yeah.
Lupita Nyong'o, Sarah Paulson, Paul Dano, Benedict Cumberbatch, Paul Giamatti's in this movie. Brad Pitt is in this movie. There's so many people. It's wild.
Yeah, no, it's a very good cast.
Michael K. Williams is in this movie.
Yeah. Omar from The Wire.
Never watched The Wire.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he passed away just last year, I think.
Just last year, yeah.
Yeah.
So why? Well, I guess you don't need to tell us about our boy Steve because we've already gone over him, huh?
Yeah. No, I kind of went quite in depth. So I guess, we've done hunger, we've done shame.
Oh yeah.
Which necessarily don't really deal with issues of race. For the most part, 12 Years a Slave definitely does. So,
oh yeah,
there's no hiding from it. This is the memoir. This is based off the book 12 Years a Slave.
Yep, the 1853 memoir 12 Years a Slave, written by Solomon Northup, obviously. Yep. So it's interesting how he came upon this book. His partner actually found this book when she and McQueen were, he was telling her he wanted to find a way into telling this story, a story from the inside of someone who was enslaved and how to tell it, how to get a perspective, a different kind of perspective on this horrible situation. And she found this book. And he was surprised that he'd never read it before. Chiwetel Ejiofor said the same thing. I'm super surprised, never heard of this book. So they read it, enthralled, and were like, yeah, this is it. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make Solomon's story.
It's a very unique and personal story.
Like hundreds of memoirs came out after the abolition of slavery.
Oh.
Of people who were enslaved and telling their stories. But this one is obviously different because you have someone who was born a free man.
Yes.
Who's, I believe it was his father who was enslaved, who was granted his freedom by, the person who, his slave owner.
Right.
So from that, his father being a free man, he was free in New York. So yeah, but his story is different, obviously, because it's also a way for, I think Steve McQueen was saying, to put someone in this situation, who's a free person. It's almost like taking the audience and putting them in that situation as well.
Right.
Like someone who could never imagine how horrible it could be.
Yes.
And just seeing it through that person's eyes is
Yeah, it's in equal parts enraging and saddening all at the same time. And this is the first time I'd ever seen the film.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, I didn't seek this film out, just purely based on the fact that I knew it was going to be a rough time.
It is, yeah.
And it definitely is. But it's engaging, I will put it that way. It is thoroughly engaging and does not feel like its length.
No, it flies by.
In any way, shape, or form, yeah.
It flies by.
Which is also kind of structurally how this film is kind of set out, is it's literally 2 hours worth of time that distills 12 years of this man's life, or absence of life, depending on kind of how you want to look at it.
Oh, yeah. So the synopsis of this film is, in the pre-Civil War United States, Solomon Northup, a free black man from upstate New York, is abducted and sold into slavery. Facing cruelty as well as unexpected kindness, Solomon struggles not only to stay alive, but to retain his dignity. In the 12th year of his unforgettable odyssey, Solomon's chance meeting with a Canadian abolitionist will forever alter his life.
Yes.
That's really long.
Yeah, it's a little bit long. As a synopsis, that's pretty much the entirety of the story
the
summed up. Yeah, and it tells you what the story.
Well, then I guess the title also tells you the end.
Well, I mean, yeah. Also, there's no sense of time in the film either. Like, time just passes. There's no sense of time for these people.
No.
You know, all kind of blends into obscurity at one point. The monotony of what they're dealing with. The brutality of everything as well. So, yes, no, yeah, that's a good synopsis. Does this film even have a tagline?
It does.
Okay.
The extraordinary true story of Solomon Northup.
That's fine.
Yep. There you go. There you go.
Yeah. They didn't take a chance on that one.
No.
So that's good.
This
is an incredibly difficult film to cover.
And I did want to point out how obviously problematic, I don't know if that's the right word, but the fact that we're talking about this movie, but that is what we do, and it is part of the podcast. And
well, this was always going to be a thing. Like, eventually we were going to have to...
And it's going to happen again.
It's going to happen again. And there are plenty of films of... I don't want to say of this nature, but certainly not just exclusively about slavery that we'll be covering at some point. But, you know, let's say like times of war, other historical events that are maybe slightly more treacherous and I guess within the tone and within the style of what we've set ourselves up to do the podcast.
It's hard to be funny.
Let's put it this way.
But I do want to talk about this movie because this movie is so good.
It's a really good film. I'm going to put it that way. It's a very good film. I'm probably more scared about covering this film than I was during Hunger. So I think we will be treading as lightly as we can on our tiny little toes.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we know we're going to talk about the story, and it's interesting, and I'll tell you a little bit about my time in Louisiana.
Oh yeah, you will. Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's get right into it then.
Do you want to hear? Okay. So in the beginning of this movie, you see a man teaching the enslaved people, how to cut sugarcane. So that man is Dickie Gravois, and I met him. I met that man.
Yeah.
Because
and not only that, like you're there, and there's like photos of you with him.
I'll post the photo. I'll post a photo of me and two of my coworkers with Dickie.
Yeah.
So he fell into that role in such a weird way where he brought his son to the open casting call that they saw on the church wall, like on the posting board. And he's like, you know, you can come down here and you'll make more money, you know, doing this movie than I pay you to cut sugarcane. So he brought him down there, and this guy just talks and talks and talks. Like, he's got the gift of the gab. He just tells stories. He's like the local historian. And he ended up just chatting. The casting director asked to put him on tape. And he's like, what did he say? He's like, well, I don't know how to, like, read that well, but I can tell you my letters and my numbers. Like, he's just, like, such a weird guy.
Okay.
But they put him on tape. And Steve McQueen ended up seeing the tape, called him personally, and asked him to go down to New Orleans and like put in a proper audition. He said he walked in. First of all, he said he didn't know a black man could have a British accent, which is a weird thing to say.
Well, to maybe give a little bit of context to Dickie is that, I mean...
He's an old man.
Yeah. Yeah, he is an old man.
He's from a time. And he's from...
He's not seen everything.
No.
Right, okay.
No. But my favorite thing that he said is that he said he walked into the room and he goes, and then I saw Ben and Angelina sitting there. And he kept talking about it. And he kept saying Ben, Ben, Ben. And I realized that he was talking about Brad Pitt. And I asked him, I go, do you mean Brad Pitt? And he goes, oh, I thought his name was Ben.
Ben Pitt.
Ben Pitt and Angelina.
His long-lost brother, Ben.
He also said some creepy stuff about Angelina that I won't say. Because that man's... Well... That's a spicy man.
Yeah.
He's a spicy old man.
Yeah. Well, that's... It's not nice.
That dude is hilarious. So I would see him... And he has a pit bull as well. And that pit bull is really cute.
Oh, okay.
So he gets points for having a pit bull.
All right, okay. Well, that's good. That's good.
I spent like 2 months of this year in Louisiana. So I've seen all these plantations and I went on these tours and, kind of tried to learn a bit about the history because it's not something that we'll ever be able to comprehend. You know what I mean? Just such tragedy and such brutality towards human beings. That's never something we're going to be able to wrap our heads around. But, we can learn and just try to be educated about things. Yeah.
I'm probably less clued up on it than you are. I just end up pleading ignorance a little bit. I think that's more on my part. But yes, there was when I did history at school, we weren't taught any of that stuff. There's already quite a long history within Europe and all that fucked up shit. So, yes, I'm not a historian.
Well, we'll never, there's so much history just in the world. We'll never be able to know it all. But this one, it's so recent. It's so incredibly recent that I think we forget.
Yeah.
How you think about slavery and you're like, that was so long ago. It had to have been 500 years ago. And you're like, no, it was like 150 years.
Yeah, it's less than 200 years.
It's so fucked.
Yeah.
It's so fucked.
It's like if you think generationally, like how long that is, and it's like, that's maybe 3 generations deep.
Yeah.
200 years, so. Like
Solomon Northup, he was, the man was granted his freedom back in 1853. Like, that's not... It just blows my mind. It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like, you can go and visit plantation houses wherever you are, they're all around the South. A lot of them in Louisiana got burned down, which is awesome during, like, the slave revolt, which I love.
Yeah.
But, there are people still living in these houses up until... like the 50s, like the 1950s, just because we're here to talk about this movie.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about this.
Yeah, I guess if you want to do some deep dive into the history, which I suggest you do, just for your own, I guess to negate any sort of pains of ignorance that you might have if you're just like, wow, I didn't realize that was the thing. It's like, maybe it'd be a good idea if you kind of recited just a little bit of history there, as history itself tends to help us not ever go into that direction ever again.
Yeah.
We should be learning from our history and certainly not trying to ignore it.
Yeah, and if you go down to Mardi Gras to get drunk on yardsticks of margaritas, maybe take a trip down to the river parishes and learn a little bit.
Yes, or
See
go
that
to a
history.
library, or ideally you could check the internet.
Everyone should travel.
I think there's stories on the internet.
But don't
you
go
can
to
read.
Louisiana during the summer, because I'm telling you, it is hell's armpit. I was there in the summer. It's a nightmare. Steve McQueen, it was like their very first day of shooting, right? It was 106 degrees in the shade. He's thinking, he says this, he goes, "Oh, I need a water vest." And people are like, "Steve, it's hot, right?" And he's like, No, it's fine. It's great. No problem. But they're like not knowing how they're going to survive. And just imagine, like, I'm just imagining Steve McQueen, probably never been to Louisiana in his life. And he's like, let's set up a shoot, let's make a movie here. We'll do it on location.
I mean,
And then it's just,
he's a man about capturing realism.
of course he is.
That's all I would say. Well,
Bless
the thing
him.
is, like, I mean, if you're going to be making a movie in those conditions, you need to do it in the harshest of conditions in order to reflect what it was like for them then, where they're not in shelter, they're in the sun.
Yeah.
For the hottest parts of the day. And I mean, I've been in the Florida heat, for the last kind of couple of years, and you're only out in it for 20 minutes, and it's like unbearable. So God knows what was going through, and
Honestly,
these poor people, these poor men and women.
No, if you are hired on to work in the fields, your life expectancy is just nothing.
Okay.
So you working out in those fields, whether you're working in cotton or you're working in sugarcane, like, you die. You die from the heat. You don't drink water. You think about how much water we're told to drink in a normal day
Yeah.
to just be healthy and survive.
Yeah.
These people were not granted those, like, they didn't have a water jug. They're just out there suffering.
Yeah.
It's so messed up. There's only one part of this movie that I don't find historically accurate. And the people who wrote this movie, Steve McQueen also had a hand in writing this film, they researched. They knew what they were doing. They knew.
Good.
They knew. But the one thing that bothers me is when they were on the ship going down to the south from DC, is that one of the sailors grabs a woman, and he's going to do something horrible.
Yeah.
And Michael K. Williams kind of goes up to stop him, and the sailor stabs him in the stomach and murders him. And I just don't see how he could get away with that. And for what reason?
Yes.
Because these people are being sold, so they are expensive.
Yes, super expensive.
So why would you...
Because, like, some of the prices getting bandied about, I mean, this is back in, 1840s money, like $1,000? How much would that be in present day?
They actually have at a
Money.
lot of the plantation houses, they have the lists of the people and their names and how much they were bought for and skills.
Right.
It's so disgusting, like the inventory of human beings.
Yeah.
But they, in certain plantations, they'll have that transacted into like nowadays money.
Okay.
And it's a lot.
All right.
It's a lot, but I can look it up for you while we talk.
Okay. Yeah, no, you did say that, and then it does actually happen. It kind of hits as a bit of a... It does hit a little bit like a hammer. Because at one point, I mean, he does touch the sailor's shoulder, and you're not really 100% sure what's happened, and then it's like, oh, there's the knife.
It's a weird scene. It's not my favorite.
Yeah, it's a bit strange.
But $1,000 in 1840 is equivalent to about $34,000 today, which actually, when you think about it, not enough. Not enough for a person.
No, well, here's the thing, Laura. Like, how much is a person worth? Exactly.
Priceless.
Exactly.
You should never put a price on a person.
Well, you shouldn't be buying people in the first place. And if you're out there on the dark web right now listening to us going, I wonder if I could buy someone.
Can I buy
Don't.
someone for $34,000?
No.
Don't do it.
No, don't do that.
Isn't that what when people buy brides online?
I don't know
that
how
the same
that
thing?
works, and I'm not going to find out.
Okay.
I don't want that in my browser history. Jesus Christ. End up in some chat room talking to a man called Chad. It's like, got a long list of women from Thailand I haven't got a problem with marrying off. I'm like, alright, Chad.
You're scaring me, Chad.
Chad, how are we friends? I don't understand this.
Don't be friends with Chad.
No, don't have friends called Chad.
This is rough, but the full frontal scene in this film is
You don't say. It's going to be rough.
Yeah.
Oh.
I didn't even say penis scene because it sucks so bad. But
Yeah.
it's at 28 minutes and about 50 seconds.
Well, this is where we go into the importance of context as well, though, because
Yes.
there's a reason why it's rough.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
the same reason why Hunger was rough, you know?
I will never doubt the reasons for Steve McQueen doing things and putting certain things in his films. Never.
No.
Because they researched this information and they, to the best of their ability, put it together as how they think it would have been. And I've done my own research as well, and it's, he doesn't shy away from that thing. And in this particular scene, you have these people who, I believe these were the people that were kidnapped.
Right, yeah.
Who were taken falsely, under false pretenses into Washington, D.C., where apparently they have a big slave market. And so they take these people from free states there so they can imprison them and sell them for money. Because at this point in history, the slave trade from Africa had been... it was illegal. So there was no more people coming in from Africa because the slave trade was banned.
Okay.
By this point.
That's interesting.
This is why they were drugging people, kidnapping people from free states, because that's the only way you could, make money from these people. You know what I mean? Because you don't have fresh people coming in anymore. It's either going to be the enslaved people you already have, or you're the enslaved people who are like having children. Do you know what I mean? So you're not getting any more people in from Africa. You understand what I'm saying, right?
I understand what you're saying. I just don't understand the morality of it all.
Oh God!
Like I'm just kind of sitting here.
There's no such thing. There's no such thing in this situation.
Yeah.
That's why it's like your, I don't know. It's like your Burke and Hares at this point. You know what I mean? Stealing bodies.
I mean,
and sell them for money.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, it's not fine. I mean, you shouldn't be stealing bodies, but I mean, those bodies are at least deceased.
The Burke and Hare, yeah.
Yeah, and they were selling them. They were selling them to the local colleges
yes.
for the Surgeons Hall. It was. Here it's slightly different. I mean, you're ripping families apart and you're relocating established individuals and then beating them to within an inch of their lives to lie about their original origins. Mm-hmm. This is, again, because I didn't know too much about this was obviously a very big eye-opener. I didn't realize that this was the way it was.
Well, I think this particular story was an eye-opener in terms of people being kidnapped and sold into southern states, because I didn't really know that much about that until this movie came out either.
Right, okay.
So that's not something, I mean, that it was a shorter piece of that whole fucked up situation, but it still happened. So it's interesting that we have this story now, to tell. But yeah, that's what was going on. So the people in this market that are bathing, I believe, were people that were kidnapped.
Yes.
For the most part. Because why else would you have a market like that in D.C. when mostly around you have slavery, which is not allowed?
Well, I mean, yeah.
That's why they're hiding them. They put them in a cart covered with a blanket, and they're hiding.
Well, the issue is
because
that
it's not legal, anything that's happening.
It's not legal where they are, but it's one of the only states at that time where they're able to basically seduce these people and drug them and then transport them secretly, I guess, over the state borders.
That's why they do it by sea.
Yes. But yeah, no, I mean, it's obviously, it's a covert market, and nothing's being done about it.
No.
At this point.
So this is where we meet Paul Giamatti, who's only in the movie for maybe 5 minutes.
You will find there's a lot of stars in this movie who are only in it for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
it's
they keep the focus quite rightly on our main character, Solomon.
Yeah.
So
we're at Paul Giamatti's market, and in this house, it's almost like he's a car dealer, like working in a car dedealership. Yes. And he has all these people, and he's trying to sell them to these other people, and a lot of the enslaved people are naked.
Yes. And well, it seems customary that if you're going to buy a slave, you want to check your slave before you purchase it.
Right.
So, that's why they're naked. That's why they get them to perform tricks and stuff.
Well, because, and they'll always try to sell off or show off the fact that they have special skills, because then you can get more money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so gross. Mm-hmm. That's why they had Solomon playing his violin, because that's a skill that he has that can be exploited for money.
Yeah.
So, I know Steve McQueen was saying that he really was happy when Paul Giamatti showed up, because Paul Giamatti has no problems manhandling people.
Okay.
So he would just you remember that scene, right? So he's just slapping people on the chest, slapping them in the mouth, being like, open up your mouth, and just kind of just shaking them and slapping them all around.
Yeah.
And Steve McQueen was saying, he's like, I know this is awful. I know this is uncomfortable, but just, be an actor, do your thing. And Paul Giamatti just got in there and just slapping people all around, had no issues.
Oh, okay.
Pure professional.
I thought it was Steve apologizing for Paul's behavior.
No. He's like, Paul, stop slapping everybody.
It's like, Paul, don't do that. Come on.
My goodness.
I'm really sorry, guys. I know you're naked. You look a little bit vulnerable, but he's probably gonna slap you on the shoulders a wee bit.
How long was that scene in Hunger, that unbroken shot? Was it 12 minutes long? Do you remember?
Which
in
one?
Hunger, where
there's a couple.
Where Bobby is talking to the priest.
Oh, 17 minutes.
17.
Yeah, 17.
Okay, so we don't get that long in this film, but there's 2 scenes that are long for what we're used to, at least these days. And so that scene where this is also the first time we meet Cumberbatch, who comes in, and where he buys Solomon and another woman named Eliza. So that whole scene with Paul Giamatti is 3 minutes and 1 second.
Okay.
Unbroken.
I mean, there's a lot of... Well, the thing is, it's kind of... The imagery itself is so engaging that you don't notice how long a scene goes on for, or how long a shot goes on for. Because the shot seems constantly developing as the scene's going on. Very
fluid, especially that one in particular. It's very fluid, and it's moving with all the action. It's just constantly following all the action back and forth. And
but I don't know if that's maybe a prerequisite of the restraints they had on shooting this film in general. Because I'd heard some things that they only had so many days in order to shoot this, and they had to do it really, really fast. So part of me feels like they had to minimize their setups and just make sure that they captured everything. And it's not to its detriment as far as I'm concerned. They're able to capture it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
relatively quite well.
I also read that they only had one camera. They only shot with one camera for the entire film.
I mean, that's not uncommon for lower budgeted films. I don't know if this film is a particularly large budget. It certainly doesn't need one.
It's not a low budget, that's for sure.
No, but at the same time, like the same token, I mean, Spielberg tends to only use one camera on the reasoning that it's how you capture the perfect eye line.
It was $20 to $22 million budget.
I mean, for a film in general, that's very low.
Okay.
22 million. But I mean, you can see, like, I mean, it's, it's as a period film. I mean, there would have been money set aside in order for, the period stuff to be put in there. But for the most part, it's all shot on location. So
yeah,
a lot of those houses might have still existed.
No, they do.
Yeah, so
a lot of those plantation houses are still there. I didn't visit the ones that they filmed at, probably because the ones I visited were, tourist attractions built for tourism. The ones that he worked at were probably still homes.
Okay.
A lot of them are still private homes and farms.
Yeah.
So, and there's still standing are houses of enslaved people that still stand to this day.
Okay.
So, yeah, you had plenty of stuff to work off of.
Yeah, well, like you say, it's not that long ago that it would have degraded.
That you still have a wooden cabin that's still standing. Sure.
Yeah.
Especially in that hellhole. Sorry, Louisiana.
You're very much, you're kind of shitting all over it. I mean, for the purposes
Louisiana
of what
is weirdly beautiful, but it is so hot. Do you remember the scene where Solomon beats the absolute shit out of dirty Paul Dano?
Yeah, you don't want to get on the wrong side of Paul Dano, as we find out.
Paul Dano always plays mostly an asshole dude.
Okay, that's fine.
That's all I'm saying. And that's super satisfying, even though, of course, it ends up leading to one of the multiple horrible things that happen in this movie.
Yes.
Where Solomon is lynched in a tree for almost an entire day and left hanging.
Yes.
On his tippy toes. It is horrific. That's not one of the scenes where they say that it held for a long... I mean, that shot held for a very long time.
Yeah, it does hold for a very long time.
It might not be 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 17 minutes, but it is long enough for you to feel like you're out of breath.
Well, I guess, yeah, because it cuts about a little bit to kind of suggest the passing of time, but it also cuts to things, and we can see things in the background happening, like there's kids playing and stuff like that, as in the people who are living there are completely desensitized to these horrific acts that are going on around them.
Yeah, I also think it's just because they know that they can't help without repercussions.
Yes.
So a girl does go up to give him a drink of water, which he can barely drink because he's literally hanging by his neck.
Yeah.
But she runs away out of fear because she's being watched.
Yeah. So
that's really bad. And what's even more, I mean, it was probably, method for the actors as well, but that tree was a lynching tree back in the day. Like, that tree had been used to lynch human beings. And there are graves of enslaved people underneath that tree right now.
Right.
So, yeah, that is a historical area.
Okay.
That they used for that scene.
Right.
So I'm sure that was pretty intense. Like, that must have been a really, really difficult day.
Yeah. I would think so. Yeah, no, that scene is horrible. But like you say, it is one of many.
Yeah. Remember when Fassbender shows up?
Oh, yeah. I've got him in my notes as MF, like motherfucker.
Yeah.
Motherfucking Fassbender.
He might be one of the worst characters ever. He's so awful.
I would say, instead of being in any way, shape, or form disparaging to what he brings to the screen, he's a very effective villain.
Oh, he's great. He is very good at being horrible.
Yeah. He also reads from the scripture as well.
Because you know it's going to be bad.
I mean, anyone who reads from scripture and cites God.
Yeah, as soon as he meets, that's the first time you see his face as he's reading scripture, telling
anyone
them.
Who uses the Bible as an excuse to commit horrible acts.
Yeah.
You know who you are.
He's so awful.
Yeah, he's the fucking worst. And he's using the Bible and the Bible verse and all that shit that's in there about slavery and owning slaves and stuff like that as justification for everything that he's doing. But he owns a cotton farm, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Yeah. So they're all
Big
out
cotton.
there. They're all out there picking cotton.
Yes, they are. And Lupita Nyong'o is the best. She's the best at it.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that you don't want to be the best, but you certainly don't want to be the worst.
Yeah.
You kind of want to get somewhere in the middle as to what we found out. Because you don't want to be the best, because then you attract too much attention. But then you also don't want to be the worst, because then you get lashed.
Yes.
And yeah, so if you average out at 200 pounds of cotton a day, you're fine.
But that's also the bad thing, because then if you do progressively worse every day, you're gonna get hit too.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky game. It's a game you can never win. You're gonna get fucked up.
Yeah, that's a horrific way of putting it, but yes.
It's true.
It's
Well, at least in this particular plantation.
Aye. Yeah.
In the film.
Either way.
Yeah, Lupita Nyong'o deserves everything. I mean, she's incredible.
Yeah, I was trying to, she's in that Jordan Peele movie, Us. Mm-hmm. She's a lot more prominent in that film. I think, she's amazing in that movie.
Yeah.
She's real good. And then that was after, 12 Years a Slave was before Us, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, quite a bit. This is 9 years old at this point.
She's got a very distinctive face. Very distinctive look about her.
Yeah.
Like really big eyes.
She's lovely.
Yeah.
Do you know she used to work as like a PA?
Mm-hmm.
And she worked on a film. I can't remember the name of the film off the top of my head right now, but with Ralph Fiennes.
Okay.
And I think she asked Ralph Fiennes at one point, telling him that she wanted to be an actor, and he was just like, "Oh, good luck."
Yeah.
And look at her now.
Yeah, I mean, if you work hard, if you continue to work hard, seemingly that's motivation enough.
Yeah, that scene.
I'm still waiting.
In the tale of Solomon Northup's life, he spent most of his time at Fassbender's farm. So he was there for most of his time as a kidnapped person.
Yes.
So I don't know. I think it might have been like 10 years, 8 to 10 years, something like that, where he spent most of his time at the worst place.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it's pretty bad, and he does try to find ways to get.
Here's the thing. Like, everyone in this movie is a bad person. Like every white person.
Yeah.
Is a bad person in this movie.
If you own human beings, you're a bad person.
Yeah. Other than Brad Pitt, who's outwardly better.
The white savior.
It all ends up, well, I don't even want to use that because it's really wishy-washy. Well, he ends up being the savior. I just kind of feel like there's a level of complacency, even in his character, where it's kind of like, I'll bear witness. It's kind of just like, oh, come on, give us a fucking break. It's like, there's varying degrees of the despicable white man in this movie, and Fassbender's the worst, followed by Paul Dano, and then obviously Giamatti, and then Benedict Cumberbatch is actually all right. He's actually
I love
okay.
that in the movie where Solomon is speaking to Eliza, and I think she was saying to him, like, you're looking to, his name is Ford, right? You're looking to Ford to be your savior. You think he's going to save you, but he knows that you're different. He knows that you're not from here, but he's not doing anything about it. So why does that make him so good?
Yes.
You know? And that's definitely something that they had to wrestle with this film as well, because in the book, Northup kept calling Ford, you know, the most Christian, the most generous, wonderful man I've ever met. But you have to think about it in context.
Yeah, because, well, that's the thing, is like, they're all in this scale of shittiness. Like, they're all owning slaves, or they're part of the slave trade, or they're trafficking people from place to place. They're either treating them really poorly, or they're watching idly by as horrible things happen to these people, or for the most part, they've committed the crime of just being an owner of slaves.
Yeah, so in the story, Ford is the lesser of the evils, but still
pretty fucked up, yeah. He's also, as we come to know, like, his character in general, like, he has obviously issues with money, and, like, these slaves are as part of a loan that he's taken out, so he's obviously, you know, it's like you're mortgaging a human being, and then you're like paying for it over a certain amount of time. So, like, I guess, like, the depths to which this industry goes, are pretty dark and despicable.
Well, for Brad Pitt being, you know, like I said, I think people have complained about him showing up and being white savior, but you can't really escape it if that's what happened. So if that's what happened in Solomon Northup's life, that's what happened in the movie. So he met a guy who gave word to his friends, and then were able to, you know, get him back to his family. So, that's what happened.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, it still wasn't that easy, and then obviously he's, you know, in the course of the historical tale, like, trying to obviously prosecute these people that originally stole him, was nigh on impossible anyway, just because of,
you know, logistical nightmare in order to prosecute these people. But
yeah,
even when he tried to prosecute them in New York, it didn't happen either. So
no,
yeah, it's pretty bad. But the other, I don't even know if I want to talk about it, but there's a lot of things I don't want to talk about because it's all very upsetting. But that scene where Patsy was chained and whipped by Fassbender, that's a 4-minute and 46-second scene. So that's the longest uncut scene in the film.
Yeah.
And that is the worst, probably.
Yeah.
It absolutely is the worst scene.
I'm not even going to describe it. I put it in my notes, says the whipping scene. And I don't think I'll ever forget seeing it.
No. No, it's haunting. And it's shot in such an interesting way. But it is... I mean, again, I'm not going to keep, you know, putting Steve on a pedestal or whatever, but he's not going to shy away from it.
No, he is not.
It's like, remember how awful that was? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, awful. There's a lot of interesting stuff with Fassbender because he is so scary. You know, there's a scene where he's always drunk, and apparently he had the makeup artist dab alcohol on his mustache so that when he was like up in people's faces, they'd kind of like be repulsed.
They'd smell it
naturally.
Yeah, they just smell it on his breath.
But there's that scene where he's chasing around Solomon with like a knife and he's drunk out of his mind and running through a pig pen and stuff.
Yeah.
He's out of control. Out of control.
Yes, no. He's also very good in this movie.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's very convincing.
Fassbender's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, he's great at going from sympathetic characters and heroic characters to going to just hot trash people.
Yes.
And playing them with such distinction.
Zeal. Yeah.
Fervor.
Yeah, no. I mean, he's good in this movie just purely by how fucking despicable he is.
Yeah.
So, as you might be able to tell, we've kind of stumbled our way through this movie because it's quite a brutal watch.
It is.
So,
I don't know why Chiwetel Ejiofor didn't win any awards for this film, but
What?
nope.
What? It was the big winner.
It was.
It was the Best Picture winner.
It was.
What else did it win that year?
Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Supporting Actress. Lupita.
Oh, yeah.
So, but this is one of the few movies where Best Picture and Best Director, they didn't win them together. So Best Director went to somewhere else. I think the same thing happened to Ben Affleck, where Argo won Best Picture, but he didn't win Best Director. Alfonso Cuarón for Gravity, looks like.
Oh, it was that year. Wow. What a mix of films as well, though, because Gravity's not good. This is really not that good at all.
She's just like spinning in space forever. Makes you want to barf.
I mean, it's all one continuous shot, or at least it makes you believe it is. But Gravity, I never thought was a very good film. Everyone was creaming their pants over it. And I'm just like, there's that bit where George Clooney just lets himself die.
Yes.
He's just like, I'm being pulled away. And it's like, but you're in space, fool. Like, there's no force pushing you. Like, there's no force in space.
I can't remember why he floated away.
He's just like, I'm going to cut the lead so that you will survive. And as far as I'm aware, I'm like, well, no, just grab him. Just tug it a little bit. Just tug it a tiny bit. And he'll come towards you. Like, you don't need to die. But then he kept on reappearing during the course of the film
he's like
anyway.
a ghost Clooney.
He's a fucking ghost. It's like, I don't know if I like that film very much at all. It's still a better space movie than First Man, but
oh yeah, for sure.
yeah, because at least in Gravity, at least it showed you stars. It wasn't just like, the blackness of space, nothingness.
So this film, 12 Years a Slave, also won BAFTA for Best Film, and Chiwetel Ejiofor did win Best Actor
at
the BAFTAs.
Right.
And apparently this is the first film from a black director to win Best Picture at the Academy Awards.
Bill Duke. Did you know got nominated for anything? Bill Duke?
Should be.
Yeah. Like.
Sweet Bill. Steve McQueen also helped to write this screenplay, and John Ridley was the credited screenplay writer for this film, and he won Best Adapted Screenplay at the Academy Awards. So there was a bit of controversy, I guess, between the two of them, because Steve McQueen had asked time and time again for a shared screenplay credit. And when John Ridley went up to accept the award for Best Adapted Screenplay, he didn't thank Steve McQueen in his acceptance speech at all. He walked past him on the way to the podium, but he stopped to hug David O. Russell.
Right.
He worked with David O. Russell on Three Kings.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just wild that he won an award for 12 Years a Slave and completely ignored Steve McQueen. And didn't thank him at all. I think he later apologized, but that seems so messed up.
I mean, if there's any way that you completely prevent yourself from ever working with that man ever again, I mean, that's it there. Like, you did a very good job of just riding that entire moment out in its entirety poorly.
Yeah.
Like, hang his hat on Three Kings. I haven't got any problems with Three Kings, but Three Kings is Three Kings.
Well, he can hang his hat on Undercover Brother, because he wrote that movie.
Good for him, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why that comes into play. Like, I guess, is it anything to do with the Writers Association or guild rules or whatever?
I think it was. I think it was purely bureaucratic.
Potentially, but then you'll never know who wrote what. And
yeah. So, okay, here we are. I am wondering, and I think I know the answer to this question, would you recommend that people watch this film?
Yes, the film's great. Yeah, I would highly recommend it. Genuinely, it's not an easy watch. Don't jump into it thinking it will be. It's relatively quite harrowing, and it's very real, and it's very honest, but No, I would highly recommend it. It's an important and riveting piece of cinema.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you there. I would absolutely recommend this movie. I hadn't seen it since it came out and was able to pick it up on Blu-ray not too long ago. So
Yeah, I'd never seen it before. This is the first time seeing it. If I hadn't mentioned that already.
I remember sending you a picture and I was like, look what I got. And Ryan, you were like, oh, great.
Yeah.
We have to watch that movie. And it's just because it's, it's
not
not a walk in the park, but it is very good. Very good.
It's not light viewing.
No.
You're not watching it going, oh, it's not a knee slapper, that's for sure.
Well, that's the funny thing when we go and we came to do this series, McQUEENERs, and it's Hunger, Shame, and 12 Years a Slave. Those are thick, dense, rough films to watch.
Yes. Yes,
but
they are.
It definitely gives us a different perspective on maybe I don't want to say like the importance of full frontal male nudity, but in terms of showing real situations and not shying away from difficult subjects.
Well, for us, it's a shift in context. Like, this is his three films of in their prevailing battle to show realism. The unfortunate counterpoint to that is that we're obviously having to cover the realism in a different light. So contextually, it works. It's just unfortunate that obviously the content of the film is not particularly pleasant. So that's just the main difference here.
Yeah, so Steve McQueen, here he is just showing us, I don't know, he's showing us what happened. He's not doing it to shock anybody, but he's just telling it like it is.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that very much. And he does it through all of his films.
Yes.
That we've watched. And it's I don't know, it's like weirdly comforting. This movie's not comforting.
No, but at least he guides you through by the hand a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, did we give our ratings on context and visibility?
Do you want to do that first?
I mean, yeah, I guess so.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say 5 again.
Okay.
It's not as gratuitous as Hunger was.
No, because Hunger, it's throughout the entire film.
Yeah, Hunger is all the way through it, but it still kind of maintains the same kind of weight behind it that Hunger did because of how atrocious the whole situation is. So that's why it gets high marks from me.
Okay. This is hard. It's hard to do it for this film, but I'm going to give it a 4, just in terms of, how long you have that shot on screen and for how long it goes through. It's not a ton. It is not, like you said, as gratuitous as Hunger or something like Shame.
No.
But it's the situations where we do have full frontal in this film is horrible.
Yes.
No one should ever have to be put in that situation, and it's just unimaginable. So it's a weird one. It's a tough one, but it is what it is. It is what it is.
All right.
Yeah. Film?
4.5.
Really? I was expecting a full 5 out of you.
No. There's a couple of issues I have with the film, kind of near the beginning. I didn't. It took a good 5-10 minutes to get me kind of engaged in it, just a little bit. Plus, I feel like the structure as well of the film. I don't know if jumping around as much as it did, in terms of the timeline. I've got no issues with like well placed flashbacks, and there is like that Eliza girl when she's effectively removed from the plantation because she won't stop crying because she's been separated from her children.
Yep.
That flashback and the weight of which that is placed in the story, I think works really, really well. The placement of some of that other stuff near the beginning, certainly because it starts at one point at a pivotal moment in the story, and then we reach that pivotal moment again later on in the story. Just there's a couple of little bits where I was like not really 100%.
That part with Dickie in the beginning?
No, I mean I thought that was fine.
Cane?
There's I think there was just kind of no reason for it to jump around that much when quite a long part of the movie is just linear up until the point where it ends. So
yeah,
I guess,
it does kind of stop at one point.
Yeah, it just kind of stops. It's kind of like, okay, it's like commit to one or the other. But either way, that's a minimal issue. And then obviously
maybe it's because he's starting to forget what his old life was like, so he stopped having flashbacks and started to just kind of accept this horrible fate.
I mean, maybe.
I'm gonna just defend him for that.
That's fine.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I mean, still, I mean, there's
because they were definitely more frequent, and then it does start to slow down. So
yeah.
You could take that as an artistic choice, potentially.
Yeah, potentially. But obviously, there's plenty to laud over the film for, I feel. It's only a reduction of half a star. I mean,
okay.
What did you give it?
5.
Oh, okay. You gave it 5 this time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yep, it's got 5 for me. It is very difficult. Obviously this was a hard one to talk about, if you couldn't tell. But
yeah, I think we got through it though.
We did. We're at the end now, so that's good. We don't have to talk about 12 Years a Slave again, even though I'd be happy to talk about it more. I do really like this movie. But it is difficult. I love Steve McQueen. I'm like a big McQUEENER over here. I'm a big fan. So there isn't anything of his that I've seen that I haven't liked. And all of his stuff is very difficult.
Yeah.
In terms of his films. So, anyway, 5 stars. It's great.
Good.
This is a great movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you guys so much for being here and sharing 12 Years a Slave with us, sharing with us McQueeners, and celebrating our boy, Sir Steve McQueen. And if you ever want to catch up with us and see what we're watching or see what we're up to, you can follow us on Letterboxd. All of our links to all of our socials are somewhere in our Instagram page. So if you're not following us, go ahead and find us. We're at On The Beat, BiTTE. And that's pretty much us across all of the social media. So you should find us there. There you can also find what films we're watching next on the podcast.
Yeah, if you follow any of our social media pages, you will find a link tree in the description, and that will give you all of the connections for everybody.
Yeah, that's good. So you can watch whatever weird sci-fi movie I'm watching on a Wednesday night that may or may not be penis related on our Letterboxd. So thanks again, guys, and coming to you from Saratoga, New York, and not Washington, D.C., I have been Laura.
I've been Ryan.
Thank you so much, and yay, McQueeners! Hooray!
We finished it.
I hope he makes another movie soon.
Well, he is.
Yay!